I've earned 30 plus certifications, and I'm here to guide you to success on your exam. Welcome to the Ultimate AZ-500 Exam Masterclass. Are you ready to crack the AZ-500 exam in one go? You're in the right place. In this session, we'll arm you with powerful insights and hand-picked questions that can make all the difference in your exam performance. We've scanned the web using intelligent crawlers to gather the most critical and high-impact questions, all compiled into one powerful PDF resource. You can download it from the link in the description. Not only will we explore these must-practice questions, but we'll also share real exam experiences and pro tips to give you that competitive edge. Let's dive into the key questions that could shape your success. Question 1. Your company recently created an Azure subscription. You need to assign a user the necessary role to implement Azure AD Privileged Identity Management, PIM. Which of the following roles should be assigned to the user? A. The Global Administrator role. B. The Security Administrator role. C. The Password Administrator role. D. The Compliance Administrator role. Correct answer A. The Global Administrator role. Explanation. Only users assigned the Global Administrator role can enable and manage Azure AD Privileged Identity Management, PIM. This role has the necessary permissions to onboard and configure PIM. Question 2. Your company uses an on-premises Active Directory forest and an Azure AD tenant. After syncing identities, you need to prevent syncing for users whose given name starts with lab. What should you do? A. Use the Synchronization Rules editor to create an attribute-based filtering rule. B. Configure a DNAT rule on the firewall. C. Configure a network traffic filtering rule on the firewall. D. Use Active Directory users and computers to create an attribute-based filtering rule. Correct answer A. Use the Synchronization Rules editor to create an attribute-based filtering rule. Explanation. Attribute-based filtering can be configured using the Synchronization Rules editor in Azure AD Connect to exclude specific users from syncing. Question 3. In Azure AD Conditional Access, what is the user risk level that should be configured for accounts with leaked credentials? A. None. B. Low. C. Medium. D. High. Correct answer D. High. Explanation. Users with leaked credentials are considered high risk and should trigger stricter conditional access policies to prevent potential compromise. Question 4. In Azure AD Conditional Access, which risk level applies to sign-ins from IP addresses associated with suspicious activity? A. None. B. Low. C. Medium. D. High. Correct answer C. Medium. Explanation. Sign-ins from IP addresses with suspicious activity are classified as medium risk, often indicating possible compromise attempts. Question 5. You are configuring an access review in Azure AD. The review should be assigned to a new collection and be reviewed by the resource owners. Which option should you choose for reviewers? A. Selected users. B. Members self. C. Group owners. D. Anyone. Correct answer C. Group owners. Explanation. Selecting group owners allows access reviews to be delegated to those responsible for managing group membership, aligning with least privilege principles. Question 6. You need to secure Azure AD roles using Privileged Identity Management, PIM. What is the first action you should take? A. Sign up PIM for Azure AD roles. B. Consent to PIM. C. Discover privileged roles. D. Discover resources. Correct answer C. Discover privileged roles. Explanation. The first step in using PIM is discovering which roles are privileged and need management, enabling further configuration steps. Question 7. You want to assign identical role assignments to multiple subscriptions linked to the same Azure AD tenant. You plan to use Azure AD PIM. Is this approach correct? A. No adjustment required. B. Azure Blueprints. C. Conditional access policies. D. Azure DevOps. Correct answer B. Azure Blueprints. Explanation. Azure Blueprints allow you to standardize role assignments, policies, and resources across multiple subscriptions consistently. Question 8. A user needs permission to upload images to your Azure Container Registry. You want to assign the least privileged role. Which role should you assign? A. Owner. B. Contributor. C. ACR push. D. ACR pull. Correct answer C. ACR push. Explanation. The ACR push role grants push access, uploading, to Azure Container Registry without broader permissions like delete or read. Question 9. A user needs permission to download images from your Azure Container Registry. Which role provides minimal required access? A. Reader. B. Contributor. C. ACR delete. D. ACR pull. Correct answer D. ACR pull. Explanation. ACR pull is the least privileged role that allows users to download, pull, images from Azure Container Registry. Question 10. You want to automatically disable unused Windows features during Azure VM provisioning using ARM templates. Which service should you use? A. Azure DevOps. B. Azure Automation State Configuration. C. Network Security Groups, NSG. D. Azure Blueprints. Correct answer B. Azure Automation State Configuration. Explanation. Azure Automation State Configuration ensures Windows features are configured or disabled according to desired state settings during deployment. Question 11. You need to ensure every Azure VM includes a custom anti-malware extension. You're writing a policy to enforce this. Which policy effect must be included? A. Disabled. B. Modify. C. Audit if not exists. D. Deploy if not exists. Correct answer D. Deploy if not exists. Explanation. The deploy if not exists effect automatically deploys the required extension if it's missing, ensuring policy compliance. Question 12. Your company uses hybrid Azure AD. Developers need to connect to an Azure SQL database from SSMS using their on-prem AD credentials. Which authentication method should they use? A. Azure AD Token. B. Azure Multi-Factor Authentication. C. Active Directory Integrated Authentication. Correct answer C. Active Directory Integrated Authentication. Explanation. Active Directory Integrated Authentication allows seamless sign-in using Windows credentials without frequent prompts. Question 13. You're enabling advanced threat protection on an Azure SQL database. What happens when a faulty SQL statement is generated by an application? A. A potential SQL injection alert is triggered. B. A vulnerability to SQL injection alert is triggered. C. An access from a potentially harmful application alert is triggered. D. A brute force SQL credentials alert is triggered. Correct answer B. A vulnerability to SQL injection alert is triggered. Explanation. A faulty SQL statement may indicate a coding flaw that could lead to injection. ADP flags this as a vulnerability. Question 14. You need to delegate access to a user to manage certificates in Azure Key Vault using least privilege. What should you use? A. A Key Vault access policy. B. Azure policy. C. Azure AD Privileged Identity Management (PIM). D. Azure DevOps. Correct answer A. A Key Vault Access Policy. Explanation. Key Vault access policies control permissions at a granular level, including certificate-specific actions. Question 15. You're enabling Azure Disk Encryption on a VM running Windows Server R2. Which statement is true? A. It is supported for basic tier VMs. B. It is supported for standard tier VMs. C. It is supported for VMs configured with software-based RAID systems. D. It is supported for VMs configured with storage spaces direct S2D. Correct answer B. It is supported for standard tier VMs. Explanation. Azure Disk Encryption is supported only on standard tier VMs. Basic tier VMs lack the required infrastructure support. Question 16. You plan to enable Azure Disk Encryption on a Linux VM running Ubuntu 16.0 for daily LTS. Which statement is correct? A. It is not supported for basic tier VMs. B. It is not supported for standard tier VMs. C. OS drive encryption for Linux virtual machine scale sets is supported. D. Custom image encryption is supported. Correct answer A. It is not supported for basic tier VMs. Explanation. Basic tier VMs do not support disk encryption due to limitations in configuration and infrastructure capabilities. Question 17. You're deploying Microsoft Monitoring Agent to many Windows Server 2016 computers via ARM templates. Which parameters must be included? Choose 2. A. Workspace ID. B. Azure AD Application ID. C. Workspace key. D. Storage account key. Correct answer A and C. Workspace ID. Workspace key. Explanation. Both Workspace ID and Workspace key are required to connect servers to the correct log analytics workspace. Question 18. You want to detect users with more than 5 failed sign-in attempts in recent days using log analytics. Which parameters should your query include? A. Event ID and COUNTIF. B. Activity ID and COUNTIF. C. Event ID and count. D. Activity ID and count. Correct answer, C. Event ID and count. Explanation. Using event ID and count helps filter and quantify failed sign-ins across logs over a defined time period. Question 19. Your team uses Azure DevOps with branch policies enabled. Which of the following statements are true? Choose 2. A. It enforces your team's change management standards. B. It controls who can read and update the code in a branch. C. It enforces your team's code quality. D. It places a branch into a read-only state. Correct answer A and C. It enforces your team's change management standards. It enforces your team's code quality. Explanation. Branch policies ensure code changes follow quality standards and proper change control, improving governance. Question 20. After creating a new Azure subscription, you want to configure custom alert rules in Azure Security Center. What should you do first? A. Remove Azure AD Identity Protection. B. Create a DLP policy. C. Create an Azure Log Analytics workspace. D. Configure the correct Security Center tier. Correct answer, C. Create an Azure Log Analytics workspace. Explanation. Azure Security Center uses log analytics to store and analyze custom alert data, requiring a workspace first. Question 21. You need to find out who deleted a virtual machine 15 days ago. Azure Diagnostics is enabled, and you've accessed Azure Monitor. Which log source should you use? A. Application log. B. Metrics. C. Activity log. D. Logs. Correct answer, C. Activity log. Explanation. The activity log captures control plane events like VM creation or deletion, including who performed the action and when. Question 22. You're analyzing security events from a Windows Server 2016 VM using Azure Monitor. Which data source should you use? A. Application log. B. Metrics. C. Activity log. D. Logs. Correct answer, D. Logs. Explanation. Azure Monitor logs provide detailed insights into guest OS-level events such as security incidents on a VM. Question 23. You want to modify OS security configurations through Azure Security Center. Which pricing tier must be selected? A. Advanced. B. Premium. C. Standard. D. Free. Correct answer, C. Standard. Explanation. The standard tier enables threat detection, vulnerability assessments, and configuration management features in Security Center. Question 24. Your developer registers a mobile app that uses the OAuth 2.0 implicit grant type. Which detail do you need from the developer for registration? A. No adjustment required. B. A secret. C. A login hint. D. A client ID. Correct answer, D. A client ID. Explanation. For registering an app that uses implicit grant flow, Azure AD requires the client ID and redirect URI from the developer. Question 25. While configuring an Azure policy, you include an effect that needs a managed identity. Which effect is this? A. Audit if not exist. B. Disabled. C. Deploy if not exist. D. Enforce OPA constraint. Correct answer, C. Deploy if not exist. Explanation. The deploy if not exist effect uses a managed identity to deploy resources or configure settings as part of policy enforcement. Question 26. You're creating an Azure Key Vault and need to retain deleted items for 90 days. Which two parameters must you use? Choose two. A. Enabled for deployment. B. Enable purge protection. C. Enabled for template deployment. D. Enable soft delete. Correct answer, B and D. Enable purge protection. Enable soft delete. Explanation. Soft delete and purge protection ensure deleted items are retained and protected from permanent deletion for the retention period. Question 27. You must prevent users with a given name starting with test from syncing to Azure AD. What tool should you use? A. Synchronization Rules Editor. B. Web Service Configuration Tool. C. Azure AD Connect Wizard. D. Active Directory Users and Computers. Correct answer, A. Synchronization Rules Editor. Explanation. The Synchronization Rules Editor allows you to apply attribute-based filtering to exclude users from Azure AD Sync. Question 28. Your company uses separate Azure subscriptions for each department. What should you use to ensure consistent role assignments across all subscriptions? A. Azure Security Center. B. Azure Policy. C. Azure AD Privileged Identity Management PIM. D. Azure Blueprints. Correct answer, D. Azure Blueprints. Explanation. Azure Blueprints let you define and deploy a repeatable set of Azure resources, policies, and role assignments across multiple subscriptions. Question 29. You need to ensure that User 2 can implement Azure AD PIM. What should you do first? A. Assign User 2 the Global Administrator role. B. Configure authentication methods for Contoso.com. C. Configure the Identity Secure Score for Contoso.com. D. Enable multi-factor authentication (MFA) for User 2. Correct answer A. Assign User 2 the Global Administrator role. Explanation: only global administrators have permission to enable and manage privileged identity management features in Azure AD. Question 30. You are choosing virtual machines to host App 1 while meeting Key Vault 1's technical requirements. Which VM should you choose? A. VM1 only. B. VM1, VM2, VM3, and VM4. C. VM1 and VM2 only. D. VM1, VM2, and VM4 only. Correct answer B. VM1, VM2, VM3, and VM4. Explanation: all listed VMs, VM1, VM4, must meet the technical and security requirements tied to Key Vault access for hosting App 1. Please revise full PDF 2 to 3 times for 100% success. Check the description for the PDF download link and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for upcoming episodes. Thank you.